Well, good evening and welcome to you all to this week's news programme. First of all, to say you might have noticed a slightly different identity with the WykeRegis TV and news at WykeRegis TV. The reason for that is that trying to make it easier to find, so it can now be found on www.wykeregis.tv. That is just the news programme. And we're trying to make it more available to other members of the community so that they feel it's a more community service than just linked to the church in Wyke. And that's feedback from people who've been watching it. So we thought that would be good to do. It's still available in all the other places as well. We just added an extra location. Secondly, to say I'm very sorry if you were expecting the Prime Minister at 6 o'clock and you've got me. We've been waiting since 4 o'clock for announcements from the Prime Minister. It was 4 o'clock, then 4:30, then 5, then we thought round about 6, and the latest is around about 6:30. I am keeping an eye in case anything happens while we are on air this evening. So it does mean that the script I wrote lastly about 5 o'clock is absolutely wrong, because I was going to say we've heard from the Prime Minister this evening. We haven't yet, but we are expecting to hear from the Prime Minister this evening that we are going into another lockdown starting on this Thursday for a period up to the 2nd of December, and that will affect everything other than schools and colleges and essential food outlets. We are expecting everything else to be asked to shut down for a period of 4 or 5 weeks. So we will hear that for sure this evening sometime, and if it happens during the programme and I can catch the information, I will relay that to you live. So why is it necessary? Well, obviously the statistics have been increasing rapidly. And looking at our local statistics, we've got more confirmed cases across Dorset and the Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole areas. Although we're still only in a Tier 1 area, the case numbers have gone up significantly in the last week. In fact, they've over doubled since this time last week. The area that is a particular concern in our council area is the 18 to 30 age range, where we're seeing more patients in hospitals and more patients testing positive in that age group. The situation in Dorset is now described by Public Health Dorset as serious, and Public Health Dorset says that they need everyone to do their bit and follow the guidelines, otherwise we'll see ourselves moving to a higher tier. Well, I think that's probably is surpassed anyway from what we're about to hear this evening. They suggest that we all need to limit contact with people from outside our household, with anyone with symptoms of COVID-19, and that anybody with symptoms must self-isolate immediately and arrange a test. If you're waiting for a test result, your whole household must self-isolate until you get the result. And obviously, if you get a positive result or you have been identified as a close contact, again, you must self-isolate as well. And self-isolate means that you must not leave your home at all. It doesn't mean that you can go out just to do this or just to do that. It means you don't go to work, you don't go to school, you don't leave the house for exercise or anything. And it's these sort of things that we need to follow to make sure that we stop the spread of the virus. If anybody needs support while self-isolating, there is a helpline at Dorset Council, 01305 221 000, and that's available for you to call if you need help. Looking at the actual figures, the number of cases in the Dorset Council area has risen from 245 for the 7-day period up to last Saturday to 414 for the same period up to this week. We also have been looking at the rates per 100,000 of population, we started 2 weeks ago in the Dorset Council area at a rate of 48 cases per 100,000, and we are now at 110 cases per 100,000. So you can see that we're almost treble where we were 2 weeks ago. Also, there are currently 85 COVID positive patients in hospitals in Dorset, compared to 44 this time last week. So, on the national front, I'm sure you have heard that scientists have been strongly advising government that we need to take action, because coronavirus is running riot across all age groups nationally, and we expect that today's announcement will see real positive steps to actually containing the virus. Of course, we will remain here on a weekly basis to update you what's happening and to pass on any relevant information that we can. In local news, Weymouth Paws Animal Welfare charity shop will close its doors for good today, as organisers have declared they cannot afford to stay open following a very difficult trading period. And of course, we've heard this with many other shops and charities in recent weeks. Research by the Consumer Data Research Centre has produced a most detailed investigation into the features of neighbourhood that impacts on health across the whole of Great Britain. They've produced an interactive map, and let's see if we can put that up for you, just showing our local area here, which shows how healthy our neighbourhoods are. They looked at a variety of environmental factors that affect our health, such as fast food outlets, pubs, gambling outlets, and then things like health services, GPs, hospitals, dentists, and the overall environmental quality, things like air quality and green space. And this information has now been summarised into access to healthy assets and hazards index. So an index number has been produced for each area across the country. And they've plotted this on a map. Now, the dark blue areas on the map are the healthiest, and the dark oranges are the least healthy. So it's good to see WykeRegis and areas of Weymouth and Portland performing well on this index, as you can see up on the screen to the side of me. So, Dorset Council are asking residents their views on a new parking permit. The permits would provide a money-saving, convenient and cash-free way to park in Dorset Council-owned car parks around the county when you're out shopping. Residents in the former West Dorset District Council area have been able to purchase permits or shoppers' permits for several years. The council are now consulting as to whether this should be rolled out across the Dorset County area, or whether the scheme should be stopped altogether. The introduction of the permits may come at a time that would help some of our struggling high streets by encouraging people to visit our high streets more often. The idea is that you buy a permit, you pay a set amount per month, and then you can go and park for 2 hours every day and go to the high street without making any further payments. However, it's estimated that it would cost around £50,000 a year to administer the scheme. Councillor Ray Bryan, Dorset Council portfolio holder for highways, travel and environment, said Western Dorset residents have been able to purchase shoppers permits for several years, and we're asking people across the county if this is something that they'd like to benefit from. Offering residents a convenient and cost-saving way to park would encourage them to shop locally, supporting businesses and breathing life back into our high streets at a time when many shops are struggling. However, it could have a financial impact on the council through reduced revenue and administrative charges, and we want to know how local people feel about this. So they're asking you to go and do an online survey and give feedback between now and the 6th of December. The survey takes about 5 minutes, and I did it myself yesterday and probably took me less than 5 minutes, and it's quite easy to do. So I would encourage you, if you're interested in parking charges and shoppers permits, to go along and take this survey. It's available at www.dorsetcouncil.gov.uk/shoppers-permit-survey. Paper copies are also going to be available in Dorset libraries from early November. Moving on to Dorset Police. Dorset Police has seen a 5.1% drop in recorded crime, according to new figures released this week. Data released by the Office of National Statistics shows the force has continued to see a drop in overall crime. In early 2020, Dorset received a good grading for accurate crime recording, which means the reduction by 5.1% during the 12 months to the end of June 2020 is a real reduction and gives us the 10th lowest crime rate in England and Wales. Deputy Chief Constable Scott Chilton said Dorset remains one of the safest counties in the country to live in and visit. The excellent work done by all our officers and staff to keep our community safe is reflected in this reduction. All crime matters to our communities, and we will maintain our focus on providing an outstanding service to the people of Dorset, particularly those who are most vulnerable. Dorset Police and Crime Commissioner Martin Underhill said this is great news for Dorset residents, as these figures demonstrate that not only do they live in one of the UK's safest counties, but one in which crime levels are actually dropping. I'd like to praise the dedication of all our officers, staff members and volunteers who have worked so hard through this very difficult period to keep people safe. Our first main story tonight is a sad story and relates to local sea life. We've heard this week that Danny the dolphin, a much loved solitary dolphin who's been in local waters for a couple of years, was found dead in Portland Harbour on Monday. A post-mortem has been undertaken by the Zoological Society of London and revealed that the injuries indicate a ship strike was the cause of the death of Danny. There have been calls for some sort of memorial to Danny, who has been seen by locals and holidaymakers alike over recent years, most frequently in Portland Harbour and Weymouth Bay. And he's even had his own Facebook page with 4,500 people following his adventures. Bottlenose dolphins inhabit warm and temperate seas worldwide, being found everywhere except for the Arctic and Antarctic Circle regions. In recent years, there's been more sightings around the coast of Dorset, which may indicate that our climate and our seas are warming. Numerous investigations into bottlenose dolphin intelligence have been conducted, examining mimicry, the use of artificial language, object categorization and self-recognition. They can use tools and transmit cultural knowledge from generation to generation, and their considerable intelligence has driven interaction with humans. Bottlenose dolphins gain popularity from aquarium shows and television programs such as Flipper. They have also been trained by militaries to locate sea mines or to detect and mark enemy divers. In some areas, they cooperate with local fishermen by driving fish into their nets and eating the fish that escape. Bottlenose dolphins have the third largest, and this is a big word, encephalization levels of any mammals on Earth. Humans have the largest, sharing close ratios with those of humans and other great apes, which means more than likely it contributes to their high intelligence and their high emotional intelligence as well. Unfortunately, Danny's sad death reminds us that sea life doesn't fare well with boats. And whilst nobody thinks Danny's death was in any way deliberate, we hope that boat owners will take care in the same way as we ask car owners to take care on our roads with land-based wildlife. There have been many pictures of Danny released showing his injuries and the post-mortem, and there's no way that I'm going to show those this evening. But I'd like to reflect on some happier times and some footage of Danny taken by various people from Weymouth and Portland as a fitting memory. Our second story tonight is about local facilities, and we've heard many stories about local shops, theatres, and entertainment venues that have been closing locally over recent months. We're very lucky to have a theatre in Weymouth and Portland who have opened up and carried on doing shows safely. We've also got other visitor attractions such as the Noth Fort, the Sea Life Centre that have been opened as well. Perhaps one facility not widely visited, but well worth a visit, is our newly laid out local museum situated in Brewers Quay. You will know that over recent months we've shared archive footage that the museum have released with you on this programme several times. This week we've heard that due to a successful couple of months at the museum, it's not going to close as planned for the winter season. It was supposed to close this weekend, I believe, and hopefully will remain open through to December. Of course, today's news from the government may change that. So Janet Hall popped along this week to pay the museum a visit.
Hello everyone. In this year of doom and gloom, it's nice to hear a success story. So when I heard what a good season Weymouth Museum had had, I went along to find out more. And one of the volunteers told me all about it.
Right, so Weymouth Museum was opened up again with money from National Lottery funding. So that was 12 weeks ago, roughly, and the display was put together by Roger Dalton, the project manager, and with help from trustees and volunteers, and they've made a really super job of it, as you can see. I mean, not only is it a lovely display, but it's COVID safe as well, because we've got this lovely one-way system that you can walk around. And we did intend to close at the end of this week on, I think it's the 31st of October. But because the visitor numbers have been so good, we're staying open till Christmas, which is fantastic. Great. So although I'm not going to be here, the other visitor assistant, Olivia, is going to be here until Christmas, working with volunteers that work front of house to keep the place open, which is great, really good news, and we're really chuffed that we've had so many visitors, as you can imagine. COVID-19 has had, loads of negative effects, but one of the very few positive ones is the staycations, and of course there's lots more visitors around. And you've had a wander around the collection, so you can see we've got some lovely costume pieces. They're put together by a special volunteer team that deal particularly with the costumes. And we've got lots of those more in store actually, but there is a limit to how much we can get out. We've got some information about King George, obviously, because he was integral to making Weymouth the successful seaside resort it is today. We've got a few of the old Time Walk figures that you can see. We've got those in the window, and we've got a few inside as well, because they're very Georgian based, the ones that we're using and the ones that we've got left. And they mean a lot to people. So a lot of our visitors come in and they say, oh, we remember this when it was the Time Walk, and it's held in a lot of affection by previous visitors to this area of town. We've got, I don't know whether you saw our little display on Pat Dunn, the first female referee. That's my personal favourite, that one, because it's, striking a blow for feminism. And although she wasn't born in Weymouth, she came here as an evacuee and stayed here. Yeah, and the Punch and Judy display. Yes. Yeah, Weymouth really missed its Punch and Judy this year, as you can imagine, because Mark, the Punch and Judy man, hasn't been able to perform because kids make loads of noise and lots of racket, basically, and that's one of the things that's not seen as being COVID safe.
One of the things which will interest All Saints parishioners is the exhibition of artefacts recovered from the wreck of the Earl of Abergavenny. You remember there's a plaque to its commander, John Wordsworth, in All Saints Church. John Wordsworth is, of course, the brother of William Wordsworth, the poet.
The future is still up in the air, because the building is owned by somebody who is hoping to develop the building and will donate a large amount of space to the museum. But until that project gets up and going, then we can't move this part of the museum into the space that it's been allotted. When that does happen, that will be fantastic because it'll be a huge space, as you can imagine, and there'll be lots of space for displays, retail, and maybe a coffee shop or something as well. But yeah, that's kind of still up in the air at the moment, but it's what we're all very excited about.
I really enjoyed my visit to Weymouth Museum, and I suggest you go along sometime before Christmas and see for yourself. And if you like it as much as I did, you can always give a donation to ensure that Weymouth keeps a wonderful museum here for tourists and for residents. Bye for now.
Thank you very much, Janet. And of course, we are, when we put this programme together, expecting that the museum will be open through to December as planned, but we don't know whether today's government announcement will affect that, and if so, how much. So it could be that the museum is only open this week and will have to close, unfortunately. But, whether it's this week or whether it's when things get back to more normal, please do pay Weymouth Museum a visit. Do go online and look at their website and their Facebook page. They're very active on Facebook, posting old pictures and information up. And do support the volunteers that keep the museum going. That's the key thing. We come to that time where I like to play my dodgy jingle. And there we are. It didn't let me down tonight. It's stuck again, didn't it? I've been looking for a new jingle and I haven't found one yet, but I will find one eventually. Birthdays this week. We wish a very happy birthday to Derek Griffin, whose birthday it was yesterday, and also to Betty Port, a belated happy birthday for in the week as well. Don't forget, if you're going to have a birthday or other anniversary or some other celebration, do let us know so that we can share it here and wish you well for your special day. Our next story this week does relate to coronavirus and the rapidly increasing rate even in the Weymouth and Portland area. So I hope you'll forgive me for returning to this subject again this week. As we start to see the effects of the second wave in our locality, I expect you're all realising that during the first wave we were hardly affected. Like me, you probably didn't know of or hear of anybody affected, or if you did, it was only the odd one or two. Now everyone I seem to speak to has heard of one or more or groups of people affected, and we've all heard that local schools are affected and other areas in the town. And as mentioned at the start of the programme, the rate is certainly increasing rapidly as well as nationally. Now, more than ever, it's therefore very important that we do what we can to protect ourselves with our social distancing, with staying at home and self-isolating if we have symptoms, and making sure we are regularly washing or gelling our hands, and yes, wearing face masks and face coverings. I found it quite disturbing recently that we seem to be getting pockets of people following only what I can call the Trump madness, of saying that they won't wear face masks or face coverings as it's their civil right. The wearing of face coverings and mask is not only fundamental to protect yourself, but also so that if you have the virus, and some of you will know that it's not always obvious that you have the virus, that if you come into contact with anyone else, that they are protected. Of course, it will be too late if we don't wear a mask and then either develop symptoms ourselves or find that we are carriers and have passed the virus on to elderly or vulnerable people, work colleagues, neighbours, family members, and they become very ill or, heaven forbid it, die from the virus. And we mustn't forget that over 500 people a day, and that's possibly more with the latest statistics, are dying from this virus across the country. And that's more than everybody who dies from cancer and road deaths all put together. So tonight I'm sharing with you a video from Dr. Joe Hansen, who's a biologist, a science writer and a creator of a blog called It's Okay to Be Smart and PBS from the USA, that shows how well masks work and how the virus spreads.
This is how COVID-19 is spread. through air currents potentially carrying microscopic droplets full of coronavirus. When we talk, breathe, or cough. We can see this thanks to an imaging technique that lets us peer into the invisible world of airflow. And using this same technique, we can see if masks really do help to stop the spread of coronavirus.
Hey smart people, Joe here. If you've been feeling confused about masks, what they do, what they don't do, whether or not you should wear one, I hope this video will help. And since I'm all by myself at the moment, I don't need to wear this or this.
This is Matthew Staymates, a fluid dynamicist and mechanical engineer at the National Institute of Standards and Technology. And while stuck at home, he turned his garage into a lab. Using a technique called Schlieren imaging, he captured some incredible images of a world that's normally invisible to our eyes. If you've ever seen wavering distortions above a hot road, that fluttery mirage happens because different temperatures and densities of air bend light in different ways, like a fluid lens. And when we talk, warm air streams out of our mouths, meeting the sea of colder air around us. A Schlieren setup lets us see these tiny differences. A narrow source of light is bounced off a concave mirror towards a camera, with a thin metal blade blocking some of the focused light. As that light interacts with air and the space between, it's bent in ever so slightly different ways, creating shadows and bright spots in the final image. And as you can see in this video from my friend Derek at Veritasium, it lets us see everything from the helium coming out of a balloon to heat rising off of a candle. And at 250 frames per second, it shows us exactly why masks work to slow airborne infection. Now, it's important to remember that we can't see viral particles in these images. They're too small. But the viruses are carried on that breath just like a river carries fish.
In fact, an individual viral particle is smaller than the weave of most fabrics. So why does this work? Well, masks help in two interesting ways. First, it's important to understand that viruses don't float around alone. They fly out in droplets of moisture. Most droplets are heavy enough that they fall within 2 meters or so, but any person or object within that distance can get bathed in virus. And without a mask, some of those droplets can evaporate into super tiny particles of infection that can float on air currents far from your mouth or nose. And these micro droplets are extremely hard for any mask to filter out. But with a mask on, in the warm, humid space between your mouth and the mask, those larger droplets don't have time to evaporate, and they can be captured by common fabrics. If it feels hot and humid in here, that means it's working. And the second way that masks work is that any droplets that do get through now have less momentum. The air currents disperse in eddies and swirls instead of flowing away in streams, which means droplets won't travel as far. So which mask is the best mask? If it seems like recommendations change all the time, that's because doctors and scientists know more now than they did months ago. And they'll know more months from now than they do today, because that's exactly how science is supposed to work.
What we do know is whether you're using a bandana, an N95 mask, or a cloth mask you sewed at home, they all still have a lot of droplet blocking power. But that mask has to fit. This is almost like not wearing a mask at all. A mask that's too tight or has too many thick layers can actually force more air out the sides.
A good test is to see if you can blow out a candle through your mask from about 1 foot away. These Schlieren images are clear evidence that masks are effective, but the best science relies on multiple lines of evidence.
Here's an experiment that we did with someone talking through a sheet of laser light, illuminating all of the micro droplets released as we speak. With a mask, those droplets are all caught.
And this microbiologist sneezed, sang, talked, and coughed over petri dishes. A simple mask blocked nearly all of the germs, and even though this experiment detected bacteria and not viruses, they both leave our airway in the same respiratory droplets. It should be pretty clear to you now why masks work, and the body of research that proves that is getting stronger all the time. Links down in the description. But really, the most important question is, why should you wear a mask? You know, it's often said that masks aren't to keep you from getting sick, but to keep you from getting others sick. Wearing a mask can dramatically reduce the chance of spreading COVID, but that's a strange thing to think about, because you might think, well, I'm not sick. I've got a strong immune system, so I don't need to wear this. But we know that COVID-19 can go undetected, and almost half of infections may come from people who don't show symptoms. That could be you, or it could be the person next to you. And if it is, wouldn't you want them wearing a mask? They probably feel the same way about you. Can masks harm your health, like lowering your body's oxygen levels? No. That's a myth, and it's been tested over and over again by healthcare workers who work all day in masks. And masks won't stop the pandemic on their own. They're best used in combination with other safety measures like hand washing and physical distancing. Stereotypically macho people have actually been shown to resist masks more. I get it. Dudes, you don't feel cool, even though lots of cool dudes wear masks. Or maybe your nose itches, or your glasses fog up, your face is sweaty. That's no fun. I mean, I get it. For most people, wearing masks is new and weird and different. But there are lots of things that used to be weird and different until everyone just started doing them. I mean, umbrellas used to be viewed as completely feminine accessories for rich people and only used to shade the sun. Until one day, some masculine men decided that they were tired of getting rained on, and suddenly enough people were using umbrellas that they became like the most boring, socially acceptable thing ever. It's true, look it up. And most people didn't use condoms in sexual relationships until the risks of HIV and other infections pushed people to change their behavior. And now it's not only normal, it's a way to say, I respect you, and I want to protect both of us. This is also a sign that you want to protect others and have them protect you. And the sooner that this becomes part of everyone's normal everyday life, the sooner we can all get back to normal everyday life. In every pandemic in history, it's the actions and choices of individual people that have made the difference. A mask can stop a virus, but it also sends a message. We're all in this together. And that's something we all need to hear right now and every day.
So there we go. Thank you, Dr. Hanson, for that. And one of the things you did point out there that always winds me up is those people that wear their masks and have their noses poking out the top. It should be covering both the mouth and the nose. Otherwise, as you saw in that video, it's not doing any good at all. Well, let's continue talking about COVID, but a bit more light-hearted this time. Did you know one quirky change under COVID-19 is that for some reason we are eating more peanut butter? Yes, eating more peanut butter. According to a recent report by the grocer, sales of peanut butter rose by almost 36% in the spring. Peanut butter producer Kirsty Hawkins from Whole Earth brand is delighted. She says peanut butter offers an easy way to add more nutrition to breakfast and snack choices. Whatever the reason, sales of peanut butter, now at just under £100 million in the past year, are now £2 million more than those for jam. Another COVID-related issue is that many dogs have struggled to adjust to the changes that COVID-19 has brought to their owners in the last year, according to the Dogs Trust. For one thing, coronavirus has meant greatly reduced walkies for many dogs, more people around the house all day, less quiet for rest, and little or no contact with other dogs. No wonder the Dogs Trust has reported that 82% of owners have reported an increase in barking and whining in their dogs. I'd be very interested to know if you've eaten more peanut butter or you have a dog that's struggling at this time. Why would I want to know? Well, I often think these so-called surveys are used to promote a certain product or organisation. But what do you think? As we approach Remembrance Sunday, do look out for the poppy appeal this year. But not so much for our street collections. Instead, the Royal British Legion will focus on contactless donations as a safer way forward during the pandemic. One such method, and you may have come across this already, is point-of-sale donations. This means that when you shop at your local supermarket and reach the till, or if you're shopping online, you may be invited to round up your total to the nearest pound to help the poppy appeal. A spokesman for the Royal British Legion said the Poppy Appeal 2020 is very much still going ahead, but that the safety and well-being of the volunteer staff and members is paramount. This means that collectors who fall into the vulnerable category have been advised not to take part in activity on behalf of the Poppy Appeal this year, especially if it would expose them to any additional risks at this time. And yet the need for the Poppy Appeal is still huge. Members of the armed forces community are suffering significant hardship as a result of the COVID-19 outbreak, and we at the British Legion will do everything possible we can to support them, she says. Of course, next Sunday around the country, Remembrance Sunday will be very different. Parades, whether national or local, are mostly cancelled. In fact, they're probably all cancelled now. And either very small restricted events are happening, which is probably unlikely in light of today's announcements, or events are moving online. In Weymouth, the current plans are that the Weymouth Town Council event will be a closed event at the Nose, which will be live streamed. And the Remembrance event in WykeRegis that is usually held in All Saints Church and then onward at the WykeRegis War Memorial will also be online too. The commemoration, which will be broadcast from approximately 10:50, that's 10 to 11, will be on www.wykeregis.tv and these channels as well. There'll be no gathering in the church to mark the silence or at the War Memorial due to the restrictions. As we move towards Remembrance Sunday, let us reflect on how our armed services have been assisting the national effort, not only in times of war, conflict or unrest, but at times of national emergency such as we're facing now with the coronavirus.
It makes me feel immensely proud of our collective national effort in pulling together behind those on the front line to combat
this year, as they have for generations, the armed forces community has stepped up to support the nation through challenges no one expected.
23,000 service personnel are earmarked for the COVID support
force. There's been an incredible relationship between the military, the NHS and communities up and down the country.
Right now, the Royal British Legion is helping those members of the armed forces community who are isolated from family, feeling lonely, facing homelessness and in financial crisis. So we need you. By supporting the Poppy Appeal, you will help the Royal British Legion support our armed forces community when they need it most. So please, show our armed forces community that we have their back, just as they've always had ours.
So don't forget the Poppy Appeal at this time, that's the message. And there's lots of products available on the Royal British Legion website that you can buy and obviously support the Poppy Appeal. Before I move on to the weather and the travel and the other things, there's one very important thing that I forgot to do earlier when I was doing the birthdays. It's my own daughter's birthday this week, so I need to wish Samantha a very happy birthday for the 6th of November. So I'm sorry I missed that, Samantha. I hope you're listening and I hope you have a very happy birthday. The presents are in the post on the way. So now let's move on to the weather for the week ahead. And some good news. I'm pleased to tell you that after some discussions with the Met Office, we have been granted a licence to broadcast their national weather forecasts. They daily produce national weather forecasts for small broadcasters to use, and we now have a licence to use their national weather forecast. So we're now going to go over to the Met Office, hopefully, if I press the right button for the national weather forecast.
Hello there, it's going to be a wet and windy Halloween today as Storm Aidan moves in from the west. The storm will track to the northwest of the UK as we head through the rest of today, bringing particularly strong winds to western areas. Gusts of 60 to 70 miles per hour are likely as we head through this afternoon. However, it will be a windy day for all, particularly as a cold front moves eastwards, bringing a band of heavy rain and squally winds. Behind that band of rain, skies should brighten for a time and winds will gradually ease for most later in the afternoon. However, it will still be particularly windy across parts of northwest Scotland. As we head through this evening, the winds will ease for many and we will have a brief spell of drier weather. However, the next band of rain is quick to arrive overnight, bringing more cloud, wind and rain for Sunday morning. After a cloudy and damp start on Sunday, there will be a bit of brightness in the west for a time, but quickly we see another band of rain move in from the southwest again, so staying largely cloudy and wet for many. The low pressure to the northwest of the UK will bring particularly strong winds to northwest Scotland through Sunday, again with gusts of 70 miles per hour possible. Looking ahead to next week, the wet and windy weather will gradually move away to the south through Monday, leaving us with sunshine and showers for Monday and Tuesday. Towards midweek, though, high pressure does build in, so there are signs of drier weather on the way, and that will bring an increased risk of cold weather with overnight frost, mist and fog. For more details, you can always head to our social media channels. Have a good day.
There we go, and thanks to the Met Office for that forecast this evening. If we look at the local weather for the week ahead, Sunday through to Tuesday in the Weymouth and Portland area is going to be a lot warmer, but very unsettled and wet, whereas the better days will be Wednesday through to Saturday, where it will be sunnier, although it will be much cooler with top temperatures of 11 or 12 through the second half of the week. Looking at traffic and travel, works continue on Commercial Road in Weymouth, and I went into Weymouth this week and see that's progressing very well. And that continues through to the 13th of November, removing the old rail tram lines and making the road surface safe. Also, the roads works continue at Castle Cove, where they're shoring up the road where it's collapsing there due to subsidence. And on the trains again this weekend, there's a bus replacement service between Bournemouth and Southampton for weekend engineering work. Moving to what's on. First of all, this week I thought I'd share with you a trailer for a movie coming up just before Christmas. Who remembers Crocodile Dundee? Well, Lionsgate has released the long-awaited trailer for the very excellent Mr. Dundee. In the meta-comedy, Paul Hogan, who played Crocodile Dundee, as you probably remember, plays a heightened version of himself, along with some of his good friends. Hogan is reluctantly thrust back into the spotlight as he desperately attempts to restore his sullied reputation on the eve of being knighted. In the comedy, that also stars John Cleese, Chevy Chase, Olivia Newton-John, and Jacob Elordi as Hogan's son. The very excellent Mr. Dundee is set to premiere on digital and on-demand services on December the 11th, just in time for Christmas. Retired in Los Angeles and overshadowed by his Crocodile Dundee character, Hogan is offered a knighthood by the Queen of England in the very excellent Mr. Dundee. But before he can accept it, Hogan gets caught up in a series of comical scandals that dominate gossip shows and social media feeds. Can he keep his reputation clean long enough to hang on to his prize and his dignity? The film has a PG-13 rating, but looks to be some light-hearted fun for the Christmas period, especially for those who remember Hogan in Crocodile Dundee.
I don't really like snakes. Don't like them either.
Please, Mr. Dundee.
I'm not really Crocodile Dundee, you know. It's the character I play in the movies. He'll have that thing on the barbecue tonight. Oops.
I have news. The Queen of England wants to bestow you with a knighthood.
What for?
You're the most successful independent film in history.
I'm just going to say one word. Hoax.
I was nominated for an Academy Award once. Couldn't have been acting. No offense.
A legend returns.
Paul Hogan.
Paul Hogan.
Paul Hogan! I love him.
She loves you.
I thought Paul Hogan was already dead.
Dead?
And he's out to prove.
We asked where the man from down under has been hiding.
You have a knife, but mine's bigger.
That's not the line.
Yes, it is.
That's not the line.
I've been doing this for 20 years. I think I'd know.
His legacy is more than a crock.
I told the studio we'd take a meeting.
We want to introduce your son, a Dundee Jr.
We have just the actor.
Will Smith.
We know what you're thinking.
Yeah.
He's too old.
No, that's not what I'm thinking.
Grandpa, are you getting a knighthood?
Yeah, maybe.
You just try and behave.
Come on, boys.
Crocodile Dundee star Paul Hogan tried to strangle a child today.
Dad, you know no one thinks this stuff, right?
Put me on one of them Tonight shows. Wow.
Oh!
Livy!
I'm doing this charity thingy at my neighbour's school. I need a favour.
You better shape up, 'cause I need a man. What the hell is this? And my heart is set on you. Get off the damn stage! Oh, you're going to hell now, buddy.
Paul Hogan, Jacob Elordi, Chevy Chase, Olivia Newton-John, and John Cleese.
John Cleese?
I don't have my driver's license.
Then just tell him you left it at home.
No, I don't have a driving license.
You threw a deadly snake at a 5th grade teacher, attempted to beat up 2 children, and knocked out a nun. What am I forgetting here?
The very excellent Mr. Dundee.
I don't mean to be nosy, John, but what happened after all your success?
Well, you know, alimony, parties, drugs, gambling, prostitutes. No, I'm being silly. I never gamble.
There you go. That's the very excellent Mr. Dundee. Just in time for Christmas. And I'm sure this Christmas is going to be a Christmas where we get more repeats than ever. So a few welcome new films are going to be very well received. Obviously, with the TV and entertainment industry unable to do a lot of filming this year. So just touching on a few final things before we close tonight, just to remind you of things that are coming up in the week ahead. Abridged works of William Shakespeare that I've been mentioning week after week is actually on tomorrow. So if you're interested in that, that's all 37 plays of William Shakespeare in 97 minutes at Weymouth Pavilion. Also tomorrow at the Noath Fort, Dorset Food and Drink have got a mini pop-up fair, final one before Christmas between 11 and 4. And on the 2nd of November, which is Monday, we've got the Strictly Come Dancing champions, Kevin and Joanne Clifton, doing an intimate show at the Pavilion for a socially distanced audience. On the 6th of November, Weymouth Pavilion Genesis Connected, a tribute show with hits of Genesis, Peter Gabriel, etc. and Phil Collins. And also to remind you that they've got That'll Be the Day, a Christmas show on Sunday the 6th of December, which you can watch online. So it's an online show, but you can also interact with the stars after the show. So pop along to the Pavilion and the Noath Fort websites for information on those things coming up this week. If you're going to Weymouth Museum this week, it's normally open from 10 to 4 Thursday to Saturday, but we'll have to wait and see what's happening with that. Also, I'd like to mention on the What's On section this week that the Royal National Lifeboat Institute Christmas cards, calendars, diaries and other goodies will be open for sale at a pop-up shop in the Tea Shop Cafe in Trinity Road to the south of the Harbour Side. The dates planned are the 7th and 8th of November and the 14th and 15th of November, again possibly set to change, so we'll have to wait and see there. And Chrissy Payne, who's the local chair of the Lifeboat Management Group, says thank you to everyone for the donations that they've given to the RNLI and for your support at this difficult time. Also to remind you that the Fair Trade shop at the Town Bridge is open and it's got lots of lovely gifts for Christmas, as well as a great range of cards and Fair Trade products, including my favourite, the Fair Trade chocolate. So last things then, tomorrow morning All Saints Church has its communion service at 9:30 and be live streamed as well. There's a Sunday service at St Edmunds at 11 a.m. and also services at Tuesday evening at 5 and another communion service on Wednesday morning at 10:30. Obviously we don't know how churches or church services will be affected at the current time, and I'm watching. I still think the Prime Minister hasn't made an announcement unless I've missed it while I've been on air. This evening, of course, at 7:30, we've got our usual quiz in 40 minutes' time, and everybody's welcome to join us for that. And lastly, if you've got any stories for our news, do send it in for next week, including anything on events or any cancellations that there may be due to the latest news. Of course, the week ahead is going to be an interesting week. We've got, as we learn what the government has in store for us, and also we've got the elections in the United States where they're voting in their new president. So as they say, a lot can happen in a week in politics, and I think it's going to be one of those weeks. So until next week, I wish you all good night and ask you to keep yourselves safe, and hopefully we can get together next week at the same time. Good night.